There are sections inside Area 51 that most conspiracy theorists have never even imagined. Sector 8 is one of them. I spent 3 years with clearance to work there, and what we discovered in the final months before the program was shut down and buried has haunted me every single day since. My name is Dr. Robert Chen. I'm 59 years old, and I was a molecular biologist assigned to what the Air Force called Special Projects Division. What I'm about to tell you will sound like science fiction, but I have documentation that I've secured in multiple locations that proves every word is true, and I'm sharing this now because I believe humanity deserves to know what was found beneath the Nevada desert in 2018. Sector 8 sits 43 levels underground, deeper than any publicly acknowledged structure at the Groom Lake facility. Getting there requires an elevator descent that takes 38 minutes, passing through security checkpoints so comprehensive that they verify your identity at the genetic level. The clearance process took me 2 years, including psychological evaluations that were designed to determine if my mind could handle what I was about to see without breaking completely. They weren't worried about me keeping secrets. They were worried about me staying sane enough to function after learning what they were hiding down there. The briefing I received on my first day was delivered by a woman I'll call Director Nash, though that wasn't her real name, and I doubt she even worked directly for any agency that officially exists. She explained that in 2016, during deep geological surveys for reasons she wouldn't specify, survey equipment had detected an anomaly 43 levels down that shouldn't exist according to everything we understood about that location's geology and history. When they finally excavated down to it, they found a chamber, sealed and artificial, that carbon dating and geological analysis suggested had been there for approximately 65 million years. 65 million! That's the boundary when the dinosaurs went extinct, when an asteroid impact reshaped life on Earth completely. Inside that chamber, perfectly preserved in conditions we still don't fully understand, they found specimens. Not alien bodies in the sense of beings from another planet, but something far more disturbing. They were human, anatomically modern humans identical to us in every significant way, wearing clothing that suggested technological civilization and carrying artifacts that proved they'd achieved industrial sophistication, and they'd been sealed in that chamber 65 million years ago, which meant that human civilization, or something very close to it, had existed on Earth during the age of dinosaurs, been destroyed in the extinction event, and left no trace except this one sealed archive that we'd stumbled upon by accident. The implications were staggering, and Director Nash gave me exactly 30 seconds to process them before continuing. If humans or human-like intelligence had existed 65 million years ago, then everything about our understanding of human evolution and history was wrong. We weren't the first technological civilization on Earth. We might not even be the second or third. And whatever had destroyed that previous civilization, the asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs and reset life on the planet, could happen again without warning and wipe us out just as thoroughly, leaving nothing but sealed chambers for whatever came after us to discover millions of years later. My assignment was to analyze the biological specimens to determine how they'd been preserved so perfectly across geological timescales, and what that preservation process might tell us about the technology that civilization had possessed. The specimens were in containment units in what we called the archive chamber, a space about the size of an aircraft hangar with rows of transparent cases containing bodies that looked like they died yesterday rather than 65 million years ago. Men, women, children, all in various states of what appeared to be sudden death, frozen in positions that suggested they'd been going about normal activities when whatever happened to seal them occurred. The preservation wasn't natural. Analysis showed that at the molecular level, every cell in these bodies had been stabilized through a process that prevented decay, prevented even the normal breakdown of biological materials that happens over time. It was technology so advanced that our best efforts to understand it produced more questions than answers.
The containment units themselves were made of materials we couldn't identify, elements in combinations that shouldn't be stable according to known chemistry, yet they'd remained perfectly intact for 65 million years, maintaining internal conditions that kept the bodies preserved.
But the worst discovery, the one that got Sector 8 shut down and buried, came when we started doing detailed scans of the specimens and found something impossible. These weren't random people sealed by accident. They'd been selected deliberately, chosen according to criteria we eventually decoded from symbols on their containment units. And the criteria was terrifying. They were variants, genetic outliers showing mutations and anomalies that didn't exist in normal human populations. Some had bone structure suggesting they'd been adapted to different gravity. Others had organ systems that included structures that served no purpose we could identify. And their DNA, when we finally managed to analyze it, showed deliberate modifications, genetic engineering at a level of sophistication we couldn't replicate, even with our most advanced CRISPR technology. Someone or something had been engineering humans 65 million years ago, not guiding evolution naturally, but actively modifying human genetics, creating variants and testing them, and apparently archiving the results in sealed chambers. And the archive we'd found wasn't unique. Ground-penetrating radar detected at least 17 other similar chambers in the surrounding area, each one presumably containing more specimens showing different modifications and variants. We'd stumbled onto what appeared to be a genetic library, a collection of human variants created and preserved by an intelligence that had existed when dinosaurs walked the Earth. If you're questioning everything you've been taught about human origins and Earth's history, leave your thoughts in the comments below about what this could mean. The research team started developing theories that got progressively more disturbing as evidence accumulated. The prevailing hypothesis was that human intelligence, or at least the humanoid form, wasn't native to Earth at all. That we'd been brought here or created here by something far older, that what we thought of as human evolution was actually just the latest iteration of a genetic engineering project that had been ongoing for millions of years. The specimens in the archive chambers weren't our ancestors exactly, but they were earlier versions from the same project, variants that had been tested and archived before the asteroid impact wiped them out and forced the project to start over from less advanced baseline. The evidence supporting this hypothesis was overwhelming once we looked at it without preconceptions. The sudden appearance of anatomically modern humans in the fossil record without clear evolutionary predecessors. The fact that human intelligence seems wildly over-adapted for survival in prehistoric environments, like we'd been designed for something more than just hunting and gathering. And most convincingly, the mathematical analysis of human DNA that showed patterns suggesting deliberate design rather than random mutation and natural selection. Our genome contained what looked like error correction codes, redundancies that made sense if someone was engineering a species to be stable across many generations, but made no sense as products of natural evolution. I was 6 months into the project when I started having dreams that felt more like memories. Dreams of cities that weren't human architecture, of beings that looked almost human but not quite, of watching from orbit as an asteroid approached Earth, knowing that everything we'd built was about to be destroyed. Other team members reported similar experiences. We'd joke about it nervously, suggesting we were spending too much time around the specimens, but privately we were all disturbed by how consistent the dreams were across people who weren't discussing them with each other. It was like proximity to the archive was triggering something in our minds, accessing information that shouldn't be there. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a geneticist on the team, had the most vivid experiences. She started claiming that the specimens weren't just preserved bodies, but were somehow still conscious, still aware at some level we couldn't measure. She said they were trying to communicate, to warn us about something, though what they were warning about she couldn't clearly articulate. The medical team evaluated her and found nothing wrong neurologically or psychiatrically, but her claims got progressively more specific and more alarming. She said the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs wasn't a random cosmic event, but had been directed deliberately, that someone or something had sterilized Earth when the genetic engineering project had gone wrong in ways that threatened something larger.
That's when Director Nash ordered a full psychological evaluation of the entire team, and we discovered that 7 of the 12 researchers were showing signs of what they called acute cognitive stress. We were hallucinating shared experiences, developing beliefs that didn't match reality, showing symptoms of dissociative disorders that emerged only when we were in the archive chamber. The official explanation was that extended exposure to the specimens was having some kind of psychoactive effect, possibly through pheromones or electromagnetic fields that the bodies were still generating even in their preserved state. The real explanation, which I only learned later, was that we were right, that proximity to the archive was triggering something in human consciousness that wasn't supposed to activate until we reached certain technological or cognitive thresholds. 3 weeks after Dr. Martinez's warning, everything changed. The specimens, which had been perfectly inert for the 6 months we'd been studying them, began showing signs of activity. Not physical movement, but changes in electromagnetic signatures, like systems that had been dormant for 65 million years were starting to power up. The containment units began displaying symbols that hadn't been visible before, mathematical formulas and diagrams that our physicists recognized as describing principles we'd only recently discovered theoretically and hadn't begun to understand practically. And the bodies themselves started showing cellular activity, metabolic processes that should have been impossible in preserved tissue, but that were clearly measurable and increasing. The emergency protocols were immediate and severe. Sector 8 was evacuated. The archive chamber was sealed with blast doors that could withstand nuclear strikes, and the entire facility was placed under quarantine. But before evacuation was complete, I saw something through the observation window that I'll never forget. The specimens in their cases were moving. Not much, just subtle shifts in position, fingers twitching, heads turning slightly. But they were moving, which meant they weren't dead, hadn't been dead, had been in some kind of stasis for 65 million years, and were now beginning to wake up. Director Nash pulled me aside during evacuation and told me something that was definitely off the record and possibly cost her career, if not her life, for sharing. She said that the deep geological surveys that had discovered the archive hadn't been looking for mineral deposits or studying earthquake faults. They'd been looking for exactly this, following intelligence that suggested such archives existed, and that they would begin activating in the 21st century according to schedules programmed millions of years ago. Someone had known the archives were down there and had been searching for them deliberately, and now that we'd found one and it was activating, protocols that had been in place for decades were being executed to seal and contain it before whatever was waking up could fully emerge. The program was shut down within 72 hours. Every researcher was debriefed, signed non-disclosure agreements more comprehensive than anything I'd seen before, and was scattered to different assignments with explicit orders never to discuss what we seen or worked on. The archive chamber was filled with concrete and sealed, though I suspect they're still monitoring it remotely, because you don't just bury something like that and walk away. And all records of Sector 8 and the archive discovery were classified at levels beyond top secret, buried so thoroughly that even people with high clearances wouldn't know to ask about it. I'm sharing this now, 6 years later, because I believe we deserve to know what was found and what it means about human origins. We're not a naturally evolved species that happened to develop intelligence and technology through lucky accidents of evolution. We're the result of a genetic engineering project that's been running for millions of years, creating and testing variants, archiving the results, and starting over after catastrophic resets like the asteroid impact 65 million years ago. And whoever or whatever is running that project is still active, still monitoring, still maintaining archives that are programmed to activate when we reach certain technological or cognitive thresholds.
The specimens in that chamber weren't just dead people from an ancient civilization. They were us, or versions of what we might have been or might still become, stored away by intelligence that views humanity as an ongoing experiment rather than as independent beings with our own destiny. And they're waking up now, or beginning to, which suggests that we're approaching some kind of threshold that whoever designed us considers significant. Whether that's good or catastrophic, I don't know, but I do know that we're making decisions about our future without understanding who we really are or what purpose we were created to serve. The worst discovery wasn't finding evidence of previous human civilizations or learning that we've been genetically engineered. The worst discovery was realizing that we're not in control of our own evolution or destiny, that something has been steering humanity for millions of years, and that we're now entering a phase of that plan that required sealing previous versions in chambers to preserve them before reset events occurred. We might be the next version scheduled for archiving before another catastrophic reset. Or we might be the variant that finally passes whatever tests the engineers are running. But either way, we're not what we thought we were, and the truth has been buried 43 levels under the Nevada desert, where almost nobody will ever learn it. I'm 59 years old now, and I've spent 6 years carrying this knowledge alone, watching humanity stumble forward in ignorance while something vast and ancient continues executing plans that were set in motion before dinosaurs went extinct. I'm sharing it now because silence hasn't made the truth less real, and maybe enough people knowing will change something about what happens next. Or maybe I'm just old and tired of keeping secrets for institutions that value control over truth. We were cleared into Area 51's Sector 8. The worst discovery was waiting there, 65 million years old and beginning to wake up. And now you know what they've been hiding underneath everything else they hide at that facility in the desert.